Hi, I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran, and I'm here to help you step out of uncertainty and fear and into the relationships of your dreams. Now, usually when I talk about relationships, it's about relationships with other people. But today, we're going to do something really special, and I have an amazing guest for you. What we're going to talk about is your relationship with your dreams. And very often, dreams get lost in the machination of life. We're just so busy being busy that we don't think about where's our soul, where's our heart, what's really important to us. I'd like to introduce Ms. Stacey Bevan. She's a 20-year veteran in the business world. And I have to read this because there's so much stuff. She's built a thriving community of over 100,000 entrepreneurs and professionals across social media platforms. She's a podcast host. How does she have time to do all this? She's a podcast guest on many, many, many interviews with industry experts. She consistently earns 5-star reviews from her listeners because of her authenticity and her actionable insights. She's a leading digital strategist. She's a mentor. She's a business owner. She's a marketer. She's a public speaker and a single mom. Yeah, wow. She describes herself as having the desire and pull to help others succeed. And I think that's a pretty impressive resume. Thank you, Stacey, for being here today. I know how incredibly busy you are.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. And it's an absolute pleasure.
Now, the thing I'd like to ask you first is tell me about the pull.
Okay, so Pursue the Pull, it's a very long story and how it came about, and I'm sure we'll have some time to go into that. But Pursue the Pull is essentially, it initially started as a podcast, and this podcast came about because I had my own entrepreneurial journey, which I found extremely difficult. And along that journey, I thought, there's so many other people experiencing what I'm experiencing. Mm-hmm. And it was incredibly hard. There was a lot of information out there, but almost too much information. It was quite overwhelming. And there was nothing really specific in the way of if I wanted to focus on a specific industry or wanted to focus on a specific area of entrepreneurship. There was nothing really specific for me out there. And it was a case of me searching. So it was very overwhelming. And there was a lot of knowledge that I didn't have. And, you know, a lot of people that I've spoken to, they have the same kind of experience when it comes to entrepreneurship. And this is why people will say, you know, entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. And it is true to some degree, but why? And it should be. So through my own journey, it made me feel a sense of, you know, this has been really difficult, and let me start off by building some sort of community where I can help others, and let me build this podcast where I can interview people that have been through these experiences that can give insight into certain industries that is specific to the industries that these potential entrepreneurs want to go into. Mm-hmm. So that's when the podcast was born. So it was born out of my own experiences as an entrepreneur going through the journey. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to build this podcast. Then the social community kind of followed. It kind of was in tangent with that. And now Pursue the Pull has grown into kind of an established brand, and it's going even further. But again, we'll come on to where it's going a little bit later on. But that's essentially what Pursue the Pull is. And why I actually launched Pursue the Pull, but essentially it's to help entrepreneurs and bring everyone together and, you know, really fulfill those knowledge gaps that are there and those challenges that we face through the journey and the process, and try and make it easier for entrepreneurs to pursue their dreams, essentially.
I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of people, when they talk about their entrepreneurial journey, make it sound like it was easy. Oh, I just switched from this to this and it was no big deal. And I think they're full of camel pucky. That's what I think, because any transition has challenges. There's no question about it. Now, I certainly don't get involved at the level that you do and with the kind of expertise that you have, but I do talk to people a lot about their dreams and feeling stuck.
Yeah.
And one of the things I run into, I'm interested to see your take on this, is people have imposter syndrome. And they think, well, who am I to do this? Write this book, start this business, you know, get this huge promotion. Who am I? And I'm wondering what that's like for you as a coach and mentor in helping people.
Yeah, so I had it really bad. And so this is what happened to me. I have been in marketing. I've worked in corporate companies. I've been a chief marketing officer. I've got 20 years experience. I've done training for Google. So from a marketing point of view, that is where I'm comfortable. That is my comfort zone. That is what I've got all my experience in. And there was a time where I was kind of, praying and saying, I really want my own business. And I'm not sure where or how to start it and what I should be doing. And Pursue the Pool came to me in a vision, and I'll come on to that a little bit later. But when I tell that story, it's people think I'm crazy, but it's the truth.
No, you're not crazy.
It's the truth. So it actually came to me in a vision, and when
Brave, yes, crazy, no.
to me, it was completely different. It was completely different to the marketing career that I've done for 20 years. So when it was a case of, going into this area, I was like, surely this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. My experience is I'm way more credible. I've got way more knowledge in this area, because I've been doing it for 20 years. So I had really big kind of imposter syndrome. When I went to do a podcast, it actually took me 8 months to do my first podcast because I didn't believe that it was something that I could do and that I should be doing. So I had a lot of imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of people do. They have a lot of self-doubt. And I think, all the interviews that I've done with all of these entrepreneurs, they've all kind of had a similar experience. They've had the imposter syndrome, they've had the self-doubt. So anyone that says that they haven't had that, I'm yet to meet someone that hasn't had imposter syndrome and self-doubt. So I think it's something we all have. It's how you deal with that, because a lot of people, they let that stop them. It gets so much for them that they think, I can't do this. This is too much. And, I'm not good enough for this. But I believe in taking small steps. And each step you take, like, beyond fear is growth. And I've always been a great believer of that. So it's just about facing those fears and just kind of just going and keep going one step at a time. You don't have to build that master business straight away. You can take one step at a time. The more knowledge and the more learning you have, the more you work on your mindset and so on. All of these things help you. So mindset is an important thing to do to help you overcome this, but it is something that everyone has. Even the, biggest entrepreneurs and the multimillionaires and billionaires, they will all tell you that they did have this fear and self-doubt, and they just fought through it, essentially. So we do all have that, and I have had it a lot throughout my career, even in my corporate career. So it's something that, it's there. And I think even if you grow as a business, it's there at the beginning. And even as you start growing as a business, it's still kind of there. It never really goes. So it's just kind of pushing through that self-doubt and that thought of imposter syndrome. So it is a real thought that we do have, and it's quite a scary thought, and it can be quite damning if you let it. So it's just something that you have to battle through.
Mm-hmm. Well, fear can either be a wonderful teacher or a horrible master. You get to decide, which way that's going to go. But one of the things I've come across in my work with folks who are doing transitions in their lives is their social group. And sometimes they're not fans of this change. For example, someone may be making a very good living in the corporate sphere, and they suddenly feel, as you would say, the pull to move to something else. And their family says, "Are you out of your mind? You have this great job and this pension and all these bonuses and hoo-ha going on. And you want to leave that for what?" And so that balance between, this is my dream and it's kind of soul crushing for me not to pursue it, but everyone's telling me I'm crazy. How do you help people over that hump?
So look, one of the things that made me grow, essentially, was letting go of people that were not good for me in my life. And some of those people, they were lovely people. There was nothing wrong with them, but it was just they couldn't go to the next stage that I was trying to go to. They couldn't come with me. And, that is a big statement in the Bible. I heard God say to me, these people can't come with you where I'm trying to take you. You have to let them go. And it's only when I did let certain people go that I actually grew. Because what I found as well is I've learned now to keep my business and what I'm working on to myself. There's a lot that I don't share. And that's because there's so much noise out there. You can't listen to yourself if you've got all these distractions, because everyone will have an opinion. And if you go to one person, they'll give you one opinion. You go to someone else, they'll give you another opinion. And some of them might have the best interest. They might be genuinely concerned that, this is the wrong move for you. They might have that genuine concern. It could be a sense of jealousy, but you have all of these different opinions, and then you've got your own opinion. And then because of all of this, you're distracted. So you don't know what voice to kind of listen to. Ultimately, you should always listen to yourself, but this distraction, it's not good, and it will delay your progress. So having all of these different people that are giving you all these different opinions, one, I learned to not ask people for their opinions so much, which is difficult when you're an entrepreneur and you're doing it on your own, because it can be quite lonely and you feel that, you've got no one to turn to. So you feel stuck sometimes, you feel isolated, you feel lonely, and you just want someone to help you. So, a lot of the times you do reach out to people trying to get that help, but, it's your journey and it's kind of individual to you, and you are delaying your progress because of all the noise that's going on around you. So one, I had to remove the distractions. So I stopped telling people and asking people for advice so I could listen to my own guidance system. But also there was a lot of people that I had to let go of. One of the big things is I used to drink alcohol. And before I actually started on this new business journey with Pursue the Pull, before I was given that vision, somebody was telling me, you have to let go of the alcohol. I can't take you to the next stage and give you the vision until you let go of the alcohol. And I wasn't a huge alcoholic, but, I like to drink, let's say. And it was a big distraction in my life. So when I stopped drinking alcohol, 50% of my friends vanished.
Yeah.
Because I was no longer out, on a Friday night, and 50% just vanished. And some of them I started going out with after, and the conversations were different. They felt different. It was no longer engaging. It was no longer fun. So, some friends I lost in that way, but others I did kind of purposefully, because I knew that, I needed to just isolate a little, but not share so much, because it was just too much distraction. So I always advise people to look at their circle of friends, and are they doing what you want to do? Are the conversation you're having with these people around you, is it meaningful? And if not, then you really need to look at that, because this is a huge part of you becoming successful. And I've had the same conversation with other entrepreneurs, and they say, they lost a lot of friends or they let go of a lot of people, because your circle and who's around you is so important. You've got to cut down that noise. So try not to tell people everything and get advice from everyone. You've got your own guidance system and you are on your own journey. No one can truly understand what it is that you're going through, essentially. So that's what I do advise people in that situation. But it's one of the first things that you need to do as an entrepreneur. It's one of the first things you really need to look at to get to that next stage.
Well, when you build a dream for yourself, you have to do a lot of visioning about where you want to go and what you want to do. And when you have people pulling at you and saying, no, your vision is wrong, you need to have this vision because that suits me better, it can really kill what you're trying to create. It's like you're an artist and someone keeps throwing rotten vegetables at what you're trying to create, and it's pretty difficult to do that. I it is true that human beings are fond of giving unsolicited advice. They do it all the time. And I have people come to me for various issues and they'll say, well, my mother-in-law said, or my cousin Frank said, and I'll say, well, with all due respect to whatever school of psychology they graduated from, I'm not sure that's quite the way you need to go, to get what you're saying that you want to have happen. So really talking with someone like yourself is the way to go, because you can help people sort of tease out those pieces and help them understand you need to think about this and be respectful of this, but not be terrified of it. You have to move through, and something that's very challenging for people is to stay with their anxiety, which is why I love you brought up the alcohol piece, because if you're intoxicated in any way, you're not fully present. And if you're not fully present on a regular basis, you can't be in a marriage, you can't create a business, you can't raise children well, you can't do that. So mucho therapy points to you for getting that together. And for those of you listening, please be mindful of that. Be thoughtful about your being able to be present, because that's presence and intention is what makes dreams come true, don't you find?
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, when I stopped drinking, I realized how much time I had available. It's like, I would, okay, Thursday, Friday night, I've got my plan. My plan is to go out with the girls and, drink. But then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to block out Saturday and Sunday because I know I'm going to be hungover. So there's another 2 days gone. Monday, you just start recovering. And, it's just a vicious cycle.
It is.
And when you stop drinking, and initially I thought, let me do it for a month and see how I go. But as soon as I stopped drinking, I realized how much time I had. And that time would be spent working on my business. I also realized that, what was I doing? I was wasting time, going out and doing this. It wasn't doing anything for my life. It wasn't giving me anything. And I also realized if my business was, where it is now, at the time that I would be drinking, I'd lose it. I wouldn't be able to sustain it because I'd be making really rash decisions. And, I was in a different place. I was kind of a different person. Whereas now, as soon as you stop drinking, your brain becomes sharper. You seem more in tune and intuitive. You're listening and you're analysing these visions that you get into in a positive way. You've got more time. You've got less distractions. You're more focused on working on your inner self as well. So it's all about, if you can say no to alcohol in a weird way, it kind of builds up your confidence as well, because it's showing that you've got this inner strength, and that makes you believe that you can achieve anything or do anything you want to do, because you've just let go of something that is so difficult to let go of. So it's a very, strong pull. It's really difficult. It wasn't an easy journey. But the reward from it, I don't even think about alcohol. I go with my friends sometimes and they have their bottle of wine and I'm just sitting there and I'm not even tempted, because the way that I am now, I wouldn't want to lose that and go back to where I was. So it is difficult, but the rewards are incredible, just for yourself as well.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I want to pivot back to fear, though, again for a moment.
Yeah, sure.
Well, wait, before I go there, let me say this to tag on to what you just said. If you find yourself in a situation, though, where you are chronically unmotivated, or you feel sad, or you don't have energy, or you're very distracted, please go see a professional, because there may be other things going on. It doesn't mean that you have, a character flaw or you're a bad person, but you may have depression, you may have anxiety, you may have ADHD. And if you're trying to create a business while you're trying to tackle that without assistance, it's going to be pretty difficult for you to do. Now, back to fear, my favorite topic. How, in your journey, which you have very courageously described as arduous, how did fear manifest itself? How did it show up in your life?
Oh, I
Big
had a
sigh.
lot of in so many different ways. I think I had a, and it's really strange because I had, not only did I have a fear of failure, it turns out after seeing a business mentor that I actually had a fear of success, which is
Oh,
strange. And I never knew that existed, to be honest with you. But I remember so the fear of failure, yeah, I understood that. But then when I started speaking to this business mentor, we got on the subject of money. And, she was asking me a lot of questions around money. And I didn't realize that, yes, there is a fear about success and having a lot of money. And I really didn't know. So I had to do a lot of work on that. And, when people say that it's 80% mindset and 20% skills in business and becoming an entrepreneur, I believe that wholeheartedly, because the amount of work and the amount of things that I've had to work on just to overcome these fears that I've had has been an awful lot. It's been a long time, and I've had to work on that before even bringing the skill side into it.
mm-hmm.
So, I've had an awful lot of fear. And, some people will look at me and they'll say, but you're very confident, you're very good at this, and you're quite good at talking and so on. And, you're quite good at sales and so on and so on. But I have a lot of fear and a lot of self-doubt, and I still have it now. It just so happens that I have, saw a business mentor and got that help a little bit early on to identify it. Mm-hmm. And then I've been able to really hone in on, okay, I've got this fear. Okay, so let me work on this. Okay, I've got this fear of this. Let me work on this. And so it's just a case of identifying these things and then being able to work on them. Because like you say, it may not just be that you've got this self-doubt or you've got a lack of confidence or lack of fear. There could be other things going on. Like I say, I had an issue with money, and, there was certain things, there was other things going on in the background that I had no idea that were there. Mm-hmm. And they were contributing to all of the fear and self-doubt that I had. So, yeah, I've experienced a lot of fear, fear that I never even knew that I had, but I knew that I was feeling a certain way. But like I say, there's certain tactics that I did and certain things that I was advised to do, which I did to overcome that. And then one of the things that I really, that really shocked me and really kind of helped me was, I remember I was asked to do some training for Google. Now, Google are a huge organisation, and I had to go on stage, and they said, look, you're only going to speak for 10 minutes. It's kind of an intro into it. And if you're good, we'll start giving you training jobs and so on. And I remember they said, yeah, there'll be 35 people there, and you'll just go on, speak, and then you'll come off. And I was like, oh, okay, 35 people. I got there and there was 250 people. There was 250 people. And I'd never spoken like publicly to that size audience before. Oh, wow. I was petrified, and I really didn't want to do it. And I remember sitting down, and the person who was on stage before me, he said to me after that, he was looking at me and I looked like I was going to be sick. He said he didn't know whether to call me up because I looked terrified. I know it was awful, but I remember sitting next to this lady, and she said, oh, are you talking? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I'm just here to learn for my business. I just really want to learn. And that triggered something in me, and I was like, okay, she just wants to learn, and I can teach her because I know this topic. So I forced myself to go up there. I did it for 10 minutes. I came off. People were coming up to me after. And after that, I got booked for so many jobs. I was able to travel the world with Google and do so many jobs because of that. And I know that if I didn't do that, those doors wouldn't have opened. So this taught me beyond fear is growth. So if you just face it, you're on to the next one and on to the next one, and different doors will open. And that was something I learned that has helped me as well overcome the fear, and also training my mind into positive thinking and so on. So there's a lot that you can do, but like I say, every entrepreneur that I've interviewed has different types of fear. I think we all do to a degree.
Agreed. And, it's only the dragons that we run from that can chase us, right? So if we turn around and face it, then
Yeah.
they just kind of shrink down and, they're not such an issue. But I think there's
Yeah.
a special challenge for women entrepreneurs.
Mm.
In our world culture, we almost issue forth from the womb thinking about other people. What do you
Yeah.
need? Do you have socks? Do you have your sandwich? Are you okay? And so pivoting to where we're thinking about just ourselves for a moment and what
Yeah.
is our dream and how do we make that happen? That's not something most men have to face. And I talk to women a lot about absolutely you can have it all. You just can't do it all.
Yeah,
And so it's
definitely.
important, I think, to have back to our social group, people around you
Mm.
that support you, like your mentor, like yourself for mentoring others.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things I would imagine that you went through is figuring out, okay, what motivates me? What gets me out of bed? What makes me excited about this? How do you help other people find that motivation? And especially with the female population, to be okay with focusing on their dream. It doesn't mean they have to lose their care and concern for others.
Yeah, I mean, not only am I a woman, but I also was a single parent of two children. So I had the extra, if you like. And, it's very difficult as a woman, especially going into the business world as well. I I am one of those people that when I am trying to motivate others, one of the things for me is when I speak to people, I do realize I don't think there's one person that I haven't spoke to that doesn't have something that is a passion of theirs. It could be something like they like writing poetry. It could be something like they love drawing. It could be something like they love dancing. It could be anything. But everyone I speak to, they have a passion. And my question is always, if money was no kind of focus and you could do anything, what would you be doing? And there's always an answer. And some people see it as a passion and they love to turn it into a business. And some people just see it as a passion. And I just believe that everyone has been given something that they're supposed to be doing. I believe that we're supposed to be fulfilling what we've been created to fulfill. And this is why when I'm speaking to people and I'm advising people, I tap into that side. So they could have strengths, they could have this amazing corporate career, and that's great. But I also look at them in terms of, okay, what is it that you love doing? And I try and hone in on that passion, because that passion, I believe, is what they're supposed to be doing. It's just that there's a lot of fear around it, or there's a lot of, is this going to make me money, or how would I make this into a business, or I've got these ties, I've got children that I need to look after, I can't just go into this. So there's a lot around a woman essentially, but there's a lot around a situation of a woman as well. Like I say, I was a single parent with two children. But like I say, I do believe that we all have this passion. And if you can tap into that, that can help you overcome everything. I believe that if I didn't have these goals and these dreams, I don't know where I would be. I don't think my life would be how it is now. I don't think I would be how I am now. So, yeah, it depends on the situation. It is very difficult for women. I try not to, and I suppose, people may disagree with me on this, but I try not to look at it as a negative being a woman. I try and look at the positives of everything. What can I do differently? What can I bring differently? So I always try and look at things from a positive angle, not a, negative space, if you like. And I do really feel that that's how we should be as women. And we should find that inner strength and promote that inner strength, if that makes sense, because we are strong. We there's a lot that we face and a lot that we have to do, and we are strong. I mean, even just raising kids and being a parent and everything else, men, it's difficult for men as well, and I won't take that away from them. But for women, we are strong. So if we've got that strength in these areas, there's so much we can be doing. And like you say, we can't do everything, but just doing the things that we love, that's a huge benefit for us. So I suppose I think in it in some ways, but then I do think of it in different ways. I think of it in a positive way. I think being a woman is a strength. So I try not to focus on how hard it's been and how hard we have it. I try and focus on the positive aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a joke in my household. If my husband isn't feeling well and he's kind of moaning and groaning, I'll just look at him and say, one menstrual cramp, just one menstrual cramp. And he'll laugh and say, I know, but we are very strong as a gender, and we do bring a lot to the table. But depending on our psychosocial circumstances, we're not always given a lot of support for that. So as far as the other thing you brought up, which I think is super cool, is that everybody has a superpower, right? And sometimes people have difficulty finding that superpower. And one of the ways I have found to help people find it is go back to the time in your life when you're about 7 or 8 years old. What was your passion? And invariably, they'll reveal their superpower right there. But here's often how the conversation goes from me, and I'm interested to see if you run into this. People will say, well, when I was 7 or 8 years old, my favorite thing was Legos. I loved to build stuff with Legos, and I was, oh, okay. And I'd like to be an architect, but, I'm scared I won't get into school and I won't do well and I won't make enough money, or I won't have enough money to go to school, blah, 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 blah. Or another popular one is, well, by the time I'm finished, I'll be 40. And I always say, well, you're going to be 40 anyway, and you won't have your dream, right? So it's that idea that once I get excited about something, there's been this socialization that says, but you can't have that. Work is about pain. Work is about doing something icky. You can't really do what you love and thrive. And I think that's one of the biggest lies out there.
100%. I mean, I personally, the way I look at things, I don't think there's anything that we can't learn if we want to. If there's something that you want to do, you can learn how to do it. I don't think that there's nothing that we can't learn if we put our mind to it and if we want it. So that's one aspect to it. And, I just think that when it comes into looking at these dreams that we have and trying to pinpoint, I think what people do a lot is they're like, okay, I'm passionate about this, but I can't make money out of it, or how would I make money out of it? And there's different frameworks that I go through when I go through this with different people. When I'm mentoring people, I always look at, okay, so if you could do this, how could you serve people with this? And it may be a byproduct of something that they're doing. It may not be directly what they can offer, but it may be a byproduct or a by service of something that they offer. But there's always a way to incorporate that passion into something that can be tied into a business. So it's just really thinking about it and changing your mindset in a way to think, okay, but how would this that I'm doing serve people?
Yes.
And just looking at that. And once you can think like that, then it's a lot easier to see it as more of a business. It's all about serving people. So how does your passion, how can it serve people? And then in order to identify that passion initially, I always go back to the question, if I had millions and I didn't need to work, what would I be doing? And I've always answered that in the sense of, okay, if I had millions, would I still be doing Pursue the Paul? Or would I still be doing training? And the answer is yes. Would I be doing these other things? Oh, no, I wouldn't be doing that. And I wouldn't be doing that, but I would be doing that. And that's how you know that there's a deep love there. Because if you've got millions, you don't need to work, but you still would do that. That's something there. So
absolutely.
I always ask myself those questions, and I ask people that question as well. And when they look at it and answer it, it's kind of like, okay, so they've identified the passion. Okay, so now you've done that. How can that actually serve people? It's all about serving people. That's why the passion, that's why we have these gifts. We have these gifts to help and give to other people, basically. So that's how I would advise and mentor people in that kind of area. There's a lot more to it, of course, but if I had to put it kind of in a nutshell, that's how I would explain it.
Well, I think we've covered a couple of things that I want to call out here specifically. One of them is things, beliefs, fallacies that we're taught. They're called cognitive distortions. And I'm sure you work with that a lot. People will, I was working with a woman and she just couldn't get that next promotion, just couldn't do it. And her reviews were good and they thought well of her, but somehow they always said, well, maybe next year, right? Yeah. So I started questioning her a little bit and I said, well, is there anything about getting that big promotion that you don't like? She said, no, I get a corner office and, key to the executive bathroom, all those little perky things. I said, well, but is there anything you don't want? She said, well, yeah, I'd make a lot more money. I said, oh, is that a bad thing? She said, yeah, because my friends wouldn't like it. My family would be jealous, all this kind of stuff. So she had made assumptions that she hadn't tested. And to your point earlier, sometimes you have to let go of people who won't support you in your success. And once she was able to do that, she got the promotion immediately. And as they say, lived happily ever after. But she had to get those limiting beliefs out of the way in order to get where she wanted to go. And I think you and what you do are key to that, helping people step outside those things. And the other is, people who follow me hear me say this all the time, beware of consensual reality, because it often sucks. It just isn't true. Like things like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, who wants cake if you can't eat it? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The only thing is maybe you don't make the cake. Maybe you buy it at the bakery. I mean, you have to have helpers and support to get things to happen. Frankly, I'm more of a frosting girl myself, but you got to have something to hold the frosting up with. People sometimes get stuck, don't they? They have decided, okay, I want to make this transition. I'm ready to do it. And they'll kind of go down their path and all of a sudden they just freeze.
Yeah.
And that's a place where someone with your gifts would be so powerful. How do you help people get through those seemingly closed doors?
Yeah. Do you know, through my entrepreneurial journey, I had a lot of challenges and there were a lot of breakdowns. There were a lot of really difficult moments. I've got to say the hardest thing about the entrepreneurial journey is what they call the bridge, which is the transition from maybe you've got a job and you've got children and you've got a household to support, transitioning from that to being a full-time entrepreneur. That is the hardest place to be. I must say, and it took me, I was stuck in this place for a good couple of years. It was really difficult and I became frustrated because your mind is kind of out of the job and it's already as your own business as an entrepreneur, but you're still there. So it's kind of like you're in one place, but your mind has already shifted over to being an entrepreneur, but you still have to do this because you need the money, you need to work, this is what you have to do to support your family. And you can't just, some people used to say, oh, just leave and then just pursue your business. And it's like, I've got a household, I've got people to support. That is a risk that I can't take. So when I was watching all of these YouTube videos and these different entrepreneurs, you've got to take the risk, just go all in and put all your money in. That's not for every situation. And specifically for me, I'm the breadwinner in the household. I've got 2 children. It's me financially that covers all the bills. Looks after the children. I don't get that outside help, so it's all on me. So for me to take that kind of risk, it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk. And then the thing is, if you do that, you almost put a lot of pressure on yourself, right? You've got a lot of pressure because now you're at a stage of, okay, I've took this huge risk. I've used all of my savings. I need to make money fast. If I don't make this money, you know, my kids are going to starve, or I'm going to be homeless, or whatever the situation might become. And, you know, that kind of pressure, it impacts the way you are in your own business, because I find that if I feel that pressure when I go to sell something, you can almost feel that desperation, and I feel it off other people. So you feel that desperation. It's not, you know, you can feel it. So it doesn't make you kind of authentic. It makes you more pressured, more, you know, it's not the right way to do it. So depending, if you don't have children and you're young and you live with your parents, fine, and you can take those risks, that's absolutely fine. But if you're in a situation where you're older and you've got commitments, children and so on, I definitely wouldn't advise to just go all in. You know, you've got responsibility. It's very, very, very risky. Unless you've got kind of proof of concept, so you've sold a lot already and you know that the business is going to do well, and you can forecast that you are going to earn this and so on and so on. It's going to be more or on the same par as what you were earning in your salary. Then that's different as well. But yeah, this bridge, this transition period, it's the most difficult. It's the most frustrating. And it's where you feel the most stuck, because then you are like, I want this, I'm ready to do this, but I can't because I've got this situation. So essentially, you know, especially if you're bootstrapping as well, if you're bootstrapping your own business, if you're not getting investors, again, that's another situation. So there's so many different situations. That's why you can't listen to so many people. You have to kind of look at your own situation, stop listening to the noise and think, okay, what is important to me? All right, financial stability at the moment is important to me. This is important to me. But I do want to get over there. So, and it is the period when I was really stressed, and I was in that period and I was researching and you know, I'd read that this is the time when a lot of people fall back and they forget about the business, because I read that and I thought, wow, and I can understand why, because it's so difficult. So for people that are in this situation, I think you have to really look at your situation and you have to almost spin it on its head, if you like. You have to look at it in a different way. You have to look at, okay, what is it going to take for me to be able to move from here to here? What is it that I need? How much of a buffer in terms of savings would be good for me to have? Would it be 6 months? Would it be 12 months? Let me be realistic. You know, how much would I need? How much realistically can I save to make sure that I've got that buffer? Oh, it might take me a year. Okay, but at least you've got that timeline. What do I need to do to get from there? Is there anything that I can do and build in the time that I'm over here that can help this grow while I'm over here? So that transition you can make very smoothly, and you have to change your mindset as well and not get frustrated and look at it like, look, it will happen. I'll just have to go about it a different way. I could get an investor, but then I'm giving away some of my business, but I could do that. Nothing against people that want to do that, and I know people that have. But if you're not and you're bootstrapping and you're in this situation, you have to look at things in a different way and then turn it into a positive way. And it may take longer, but it's more secure, and you've got that safety element, and you're not rushing and you're not putting all that pressure on yourself, and eventually it will happen. But yeah, during it's one of the worst parts, I would say, of this entrepreneurship journey. It really is difficult. So I do advise a lot on this because it was the bit that hit me the most.
Well, I love how pragmatic you are, and that you can speak at a ground level and a high level about people changing their lives.
Yeah.
And on that subject, a little bird told me that you've been working on a project for the last couple of years, something very special. Can you give us some hints? Bat.
So yeah, as I've already mentioned, so I don't go into things too much, but Pursue the Pool has been going for a while now, and it's generated a lot of followers. There's a community that has been built where, we are all helping one another. And this project that I'm working on, it came from the journey that I'm on. As I mentioned before, Pursue the Pool came from a vision. I was in my living room, I was praying, I was kind of like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? And, then I'd stop drinking and I was praying. And then I stood at my table and I got a download and I saw the podcast. I saw the name Pursue the Pool. I'd never thought of that before. I'd never heard of that before.
Wow.
Everything came to me in this vision. It was all downloaded to me from God. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh. And like I say, it took me 8 months to do my first podcast, but I saw everything that I was meant to be doing. So Pursue the Pool started. Like I say, there's the podcast and there's the social community. And now, going through the journey that I've been through, I've identified different needs, if you like, things that would help make it easier for entrepreneurs. So I am working on something big at the moment. It's going to be coming out either towards the end of this year or the beginning of next year. It's nearly finished. It's on its last section. It's going to be something that's really exciting, that is going to help entrepreneurs in a way that, everything they need is going to be available to them, and it's going to support them on the journey that, I've experienced and that others experienced. So I can't say too much about it at the moment because, like I say, I like to keep things sometimes a little bit hush because of distractions and so on. But it is something that is part of Pursue the Pool. And like you say, yes, I've been working on it for around 2.5 years. It's taken time, but, business, longevity, if you want longevity, for me, things don't happen overnight. And, you do see these videos on YouTube that say it does, but, things don't happen overnight, especially ones that are sustainable and have longevity. So it's taken a long time for me to work on, but it's nearly finished. And it's something that's going to be a groundbreaking tool, if you like, for entrepreneurs to utilize. So it's removing a lot of the challenges and, overcoming a lot of the gaps that are in the industry for entrepreneurs and so on. So it's going to be coming out soon, and it is specifically for entrepreneurs and startup companies. So I'm very excited.
It sounds incredibly exciting, and not only for you but for all the people that's going to help.
Thank you.
And on that note, how do we find you? Where can we follow you? What's your website? Give us some info.
Yes. So Pursue the Pool is pretty much everywhere on every social media network. So you can follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We've got the podcast on Apple, Spotify, all of the major podcast networks. We're on there as well. And we do have a website, pursuethepool.eu. Still being worked on. Well, it's not being worked on. Part of it is done, but I'm just adding the new thing that's coming out onto there. But you can join the community on all of the search channels, and that will keep you up to date with everything that's going on now and everything that is to come. And also I'm personally on LinkedIn as well. So Stacey Bevan, you can reach out to me directly. And any questions or any advice or anything you need, I'm here to help. I want to help, and this is the purpose that I've been given, and I'm really enjoying doing that, and I'm really enjoying helping people. So join the community with all of the other entrepreneurs and business startup founders that are on there as well, and let's all connect.
Well, you are a lovely person and so approachable. And I know, when people are going through something like creating their dream, it's scary. And to have someone that feels as safe and welcoming and warm as you is just an incredible gift to all of them. I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's been amazing that I can just, be as vulnerable as my guests, and just be able to give to your audience as well. So, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I did too. Until next time, I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran. And as always, there's more to talk about. I look forward to our next conversation. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to connect, whether it be for a keynote, webinar, media opportunity, or coaching, please contact me at drcochran.com.